سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله لا شريك له لا إله إلا هو وإليه المصير. أمسينا على فطرة الإسلام وكلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. اللهم إني أمسيت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم علي نعمتك وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما أمسى بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. يا رب لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. ثم أما بعد, my dear respected brothers and sisters, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We start our halaqah tonight by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything and sending our prayers, our salam upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ni'mah of iman, for the ni'mah of hidayah, guidance, for all the favors that He has given us, for the ni'mah of sending the prophets and the messengers to show us the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to teach us about our task, our mission, our purpose in this life. And alhamdulillah, we have been studying so many of these prophets, and tonight we're going to talk about another prophet who is Prophet Zakaria. Prophet Zakaria alayhi salatu wassalam. And we know that Prophet Zakaria was sent as a prophet along with his son Yahya, just to introduce a great prophet that came right after them at their time, basically, who is Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Zakaria several times in the Quran, about 8 different places in the Quran, including Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah Al-An'am, Surah Maryam, Surah Al Imran. And in Surah Al-Anbiya, and always we would like to start with a verse from the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this prophet. In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 89, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَزَكَرِيَّا إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْنِي فَرْدًا وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And remember Zakaria, when he called to his Lord, do not leave me alone. Do not leave me alone. And alone here means childless. Because Zakaria has been, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a son, but, it didn't happen. At a certain point, we are going to see when exactly Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam made this dua. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to leave him alone, which means, Ya Allah, grant me a son. Do not leave me alone, for you are the best of givers. In another translation, Al-Warithin, the best of inheritance, or inheritors. In this verse kind of like introduced Prophet Zakaria for us. As I have mentioned, he was mentioned in the Quran 8 times in different surahs, and sometimes his name just was mentioned briefly without any details along with other prophets, and sometimes he was mentioned a little bit in details, as it was the case in Surah Al Imran and Surah Maryam. Obviously known Zakaria as one of the prophets of Banu Israel. He was one of the prophets of Banu Israel. He is a descendant of Sulaiman and Dawood, and going all the way to Yaqub, Ishaq and Ibrahim. And he lived right before Prophet Isa alayhi salam. He lived right before Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and he was sent to Banu Israel. He spent his life giving da'wah to Banu Israel, reminding them about their purpose of life, about their duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And scholars say that the time when Zakaria was a prophet was one of the most corrupt time, the worst time of Banu Israel. They were under the tyranny of the Romans at that time, and a lot of corruption was very widespread at that time, and people forgot about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgot about their duty in this life. Tyrant rulers like heralds of the Roman Empire, who was in charge of the Holy Land, he was the governor of the Holy Land at that time, was so brutal, so bad with Banu Israel and with everyone who opposed him. Actually, he is the one who killed the son of Zakaria, Yahya. He is the one who ordered the killing. Actually, Yahya was, as we're going to talk about him next week, inshallah, he was slaughtered. And his head, bleeding, was offered to Herod, on a plate, just to satisfy his girlfriend. This is, very well known. Just to satisfy his girlfriend, he ordered for Yahya alayhi salam to be slaughtered. Zakaria suffered from the tyrants of that time. They gave him a hard time. They, tortured him and all that stuff. And also he suffered from his own people. Banu Israel, at that time they were going through a very bad time. Within themselves as a community, corrupt community, and also under the tyrants of the Romans at that time. So he kept doing, Zakaria kept doing exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to do, like all the prophets, until he became old and he could not take it anymore. He could not take that torture, that suffering that he was subjected to because of his age, And when Zakaria realized that he is not able to take the tasks of the prophethood, the giving the da'wah and being patient and all that stuff, he was afraid that his people will go astray. Because at that time, before getting Yahya, there was nobody. There was no one who could take this task. Zakaria was, one of the top people, if not the top, amongst Banu Israel in terms of righteousness and teaching and preaching and all that stuff. So he was afraid that if he will die, then there will be nobody, no one who will take that task of prophethood. So he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a son. Zakaria alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a son. And not because he liked, to have a son or something like this, no. But he wanted a helper. He wanted somebody who can inherit from him the leadership of Banu Israel and continue the legacy of the Prophet. This is why he wanted a son. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, in this verse, when Zakaria made that dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. We answered him. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ يَحْيَى. And we have granted him his son Yahya. And by the way, Yahya was named Yahya before he was born. He is the only one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his name before he was born. So Yahya was named by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Yahya was unique on this matter. وَأَصْلَحْنَا لَهُ زَوْجَهُ. And we have fixed, we have given the goodness to his wife. Aslahna. Islah means reform, means fix, means making somebody or something straight. And the scholars talked about what happened? أصلحنا له زوجه. You know, what was wrong with his wife? So the scholar said that أصلحنا, which means we made his wife able to deliver a baby. Other scholars, they went in more details. They said she, you know, at the age of 89 years old, she got back her monthly period. So she could deliver the baby Yahya. وَأَصْلَحْنَا لَهُ زَوْجًا. So this is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the privilege that He gave to the family, not only to Zakaria, but to the family of Zakaria. So number one, we answered his dua. We heard and we answered his dua. We have granted him Yahya. We have fixed his wife. Why? إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. Because all of them as a family, they used to race to do good deeds. يُسَارِعُونَ, to race, you know, with one another to do the good deeds. This is number one. This is the first reason. Second one, وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا. And they used to make dua, to call upon us with hope and fear. رَغَبًا, hope, رَهَبًا, with fear. This is the second reason. And the third reason, وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. And they were humble to us. Because of their humbleness, because of racing to do good deeds, and because they used to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with hope and fear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with all this favor and gave Zakaria and his wife the baby Yahya alayhi salam. So Yahya was born, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the birth of Yahya, sent Zakaria and Yahya to introduce, as I have mentioned earlier, the coming of Isa alayhi salam, since he was the final prophet within Banu Israel. Isa was the final, the last prophet within Banu Israel. And then the leadership of this humanity shifted from Banu Israel to Al-Arab, to Bani Ismail. From Banu Israel to Bani Ismail. And Zakaria, before the prophethood, was one of the most distinguished people serving at the temple. One of the most distinguished people serving at the temple in Jerusalem. And Imran, who was Maryam's father, was the great rabbi of that time. Imran, the father of Maryam, he was the great rabbi. He was not a prophet, but he was the great rabbi, a righteous man at that time. And when he passed away, Imran passed away, Zakaria took care of Maryam. And Zakaria was the husband of her khala, of her aunt. Zakaria was the husband of her aunt. Which means Yahya and Maryam, they were cousins. Yahya and Maryam, they were cousins. And Zakaria, when he was taking care of Maryam, when she was a young lady growing up in the temple, you know, Maryam didn't have a regular life like everyone else, you know, going outside to the marketplace and all that stuff. No. Maryam, since her childhood, as her mom, devoted her to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dedicated her for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She grew up worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all what she did. She grew up in the temple worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Zakaria was the one going to visit her and make sure that she had whatever she needed and all that stuff. But Zakaria, when he was taking care of her, when she was in the temple, he was always amazed and, you know, surprised about what he saw. He saw wonders. He saw miracles with Maryam while taking care of her. Here is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about these miracles. And this is in Surah Al Imran. He said, فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ. So her Lord accepted her a good acceptance with grace, graciously. وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا, and made her grow a good growth, which means the way she grew up, the way she spent her childhood, she was very righteous. She was very righteous. And everybody knew this about her. وَكَفَّلَهَا زَكَرِيَّا, and made, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Zakaria her guardian. He was her guardian. In Warsh, in Hafs, كَفَّلَهَا, according to Warsh, كَفَلَهَا. Kafala, from kafala, to adopt somebody, to sponsor kind of somebody, to be the guardian of someone. وَكَفَلَهَا زَكَرِيَّا. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كُلَّمَا دَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا زَكَرِيَّا الْمِحْرَابَ وَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا رِزْقًا. And whenever Zakaria visited her at her place of worship, he found food with her. There's nothing surprising to find food with somebody, but the scholars said the miracle here that Zakaria used to find food that was not available at that season, at that time. There was no way to find that food in the marketplace. You know, the food that was supposed to exist somewhere else or in a different season. Even some scholars, they said the food or the fruits and vegetables of the winter, she had that fruit and vegetable in summer, and vice versa. وَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا رِزْقًا. He found food with her. قَالَ يَا مَرْيَمْ أَنَّى لَكِ هَذَا. He asked her, Maryam, from where did you have this? From where did you get it? قالت هو من عند الله إن الله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. She said, it is from Allah. Surely Allah gives whom He wills without measure. Without measure. I mean, this was her answer. Her answer is that whatever you see with me is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From where did she get it? A miracle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided her. Allah Azza wa Jalla said after that, هُنَالِكَ, thereupon. When Zakaria saw with his own eyes the miracles happening, thereupon, هُنَالِكَ دَعَى زَكَرِيَّا رَبَّهُ. Thereupon Zakaria prayed to his Lord. And here is the most famous prayer Zakaria made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال, he said, رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً إِنَّكَ سَمِيعُ الدُّعَاء. He said, Oh my Lord, grant me from your own power a goodly progeny, dhurriya, offspring, kids. Verily you are the one who listens to the prayer. The scholars commented on this and they said, what Zakaria saw, what he experienced with Maryam, made him think again about having kids. Even though he was 99 years old when he made this dua. After he lost hope and he stopped making that dua. I mean, he used to make that dua a long time ago, a few decades ago. But when he saw the miracles, he thought about himself. I mean, if these miracles are happening to Maryam, this miracle might happen to me too, right? So he kind of revived what he experienced with Maryam, revived within him that hope. So he made that dua again. He made that dua again. Rabbi Habib, grant me, min ladun, from your own power, dhurriya, tayyiba, good offspring. Tayyib here means pure, means clean, means blessed, you know. So Zakaria, not only he wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a son, but he wanted somebody who is pure, who is clean, because he was thinking about someone who can take the legacy and continue the way, continue the work that he was doing with his own people, with Banu Israel. So this is the dua that Zakaria made. What was the answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah Azza wa Jalla telling us, فَنَادَتْهُ. Again, the letter fa in the Arabic language, when it comes at the beginning of a verb, it means that it happened immediately. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said here, وَنَادَتْهُ or ثُمَّ نَادَتْهُ, okay, then it means that it happened after a while. Maybe after a few days, few weeks, few months, 1 year. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَنَادَتْهُ, it means that it happened immediately. There was no gap, no time between his dua and the time Allah answered that dua. So how did that dua get answered? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَنَادَتْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Immediately, the angels called upon him, told him, فَنَادَتْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ وَهُوَ قَائِمٌ يُصَلِّي فِي الْمِحْرَابِ. The Malaika, they called him to give him the good news while he was standing in prayer, in al-mihrab. We don't know whether the same mihrab where Maryam was, because it seems from the context of the verses that he made this dua when he saw Maryam, when he asked her about the food and she answered him, and he was like, MashaAllah. Then he made his dua right away. And most likely when he was still inside al-mihrab, inside the temple where Maryam was, standing in prayer, immediately al-malaika talked to him, وَهُوَ قَائِمٌ يُصَلِّي, while standing in prayer. Fil mihrab, in the sanctuary. The mihrab could be the sanctuary, could be the place of worship, could be the temple. أَنَّ اللَّهَ, what was the message of al-malaika? What was the answer that Allah Azza wa Jal sent to Zakaria through the angels, through al-malaika? أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكَ بِيَحْيَى, that Allah gives you the good news of Yahya. So the name of his son was mentioned before he was born. And who gave him this name? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Malaika just, conveyed the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُبَشِّرُكَ بِيَحْيَى, that Allah gives you the good news of Yahya, مُصَدِّقًا بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَسَيِّدًا وَحَصُورًا وَنَبِيًّا مِّنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Allahu Akbar, MashaAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave all the characteristics, all the descriptions of Yahya before his mom was pregnant of him. What are the descriptions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave about Yahya? He said, who shall come to confirm a word of Allah, number one, and shall be a chief, Sayyid, a chief, a leader, somebody with high status. وَحَصُورًا, Hasuran means sin-free, sinless. Hasur, which means a child, a man who won't commit sins, pure, free from all sins. وَنَبِيًّا, and he will be a prophet. This is before he was born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already gave to his dad everything about him. That he will be musaddiqan بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, he will confirm a word from Allah. Sayyidan, a chief. Hasuran, pure from all sins. وَنَبِيًّا, a prophet. مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ, one of the righteous. 5 characteristics Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given about Yahya alayhi salam. What was the feedback, the reaction of Zakaria at that time? When somebody is given extremely good news, expecting good news. I mean, you don't. What kind of reaction you expect from this person? He or she might react in a way that you will be like, really? I mean, after all this good news, this is what you have to say? The same thing happened to Zakaria. So, when he told him, when the Malaika told him all this stuff, he said, قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وقد بلغني الكبر وامرأتي عاقر. He said, oh my Lord, how shall I have a boy when old age has come upon me and my wife is barren, which means she doesn't give birth? Come on, Zakaria, I mean, give me a break. You have been making dua your entire life, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you a boy, and now you got the confirmation, and then you are asking, how come Allah gives you this? The scholar said that this is the answer or the reaction of somebody who is super excited. Instead of jumping or screaming or doing anything else, he asked this question. He didn't ask this question objecting. How come? Allah, can Allah do that? No. He asked this question out of excitement. That, in other words, I can't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me this. I can't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting me my wish. This is the reaction of Zakaria in other words. And it is the same reaction of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. When the angels came to him and gave him the glad tidings, the good news, that his wife, Sarah, will be pregnant of Ishaq. What was the reaction of Ibrahim? The same thing. What was the reaction of Sarah? The same thing. She slapped her face and she said, how come? And the angels were like, this is the command of your Lord. This is what your Lord wants. So the answer of Zakaria is not to object or to question the ability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it was out of excitement. This is the way he expressed himself when he got the news. Again, as I have mentioned, Zakaria, when he got this news, he was 99 years old, and his wife was 98 years old. At that point, he made a request. He asked something when he was given this good news. It's as if he was so excited to the point that he wanted to know when. He wanted to know when he is going to get this baby. So he asked, قال Zakaria, قال رب اجعل لي آية. He said, oh my Lord, set me a sign. He wanted to know when, because he didn't want to be just kind of like wondering, is this going to happen next month, next year or something like this? He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a sign. To give him a sign to know this sign will indicate that Yahya is on his way. That Yahya is on his way. قال رب اجعل لي آية. He said, oh my Lord, set for me a sign. قال Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala آيتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاثة أيام إلا رمزا. Your sign, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, your sign is that you shall not be able to speak to people for 3 days except through gestures, kind of sign language. It doesn't mean that Zakaria is going to lose his speech, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him during those 3 days not being able to speak except to make tasbih and dhikr. The only words that he could say during the 3 days were tasbih, subhanallah, and dhikr. La ilaha illallah, Alhamdulillah. These are the only words. But when it comes to communicating with his people, with gestures. Some scholars, they said, with sign language. Other scholars said he used to write for them whatever he wanted to tell them. And these 3 years of not being able to communicate with people were the sign that Yahya was on his way. That Yahya was on his way. أن لا تكلم الناس 3 أيام إلا رمزا واذكر ربك كثيرا وسبح بالعشي والإبكار. So you will not be able, your sign is that you shall not be able to speak to people for 3 days except through gestures, and then remember your Lord much and proclaim his purity in the evening and the morning. Which means the exception that scholars mention. That the only things that he could say and express during the 3 days was tasbih and dhikr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the verses from Surah Al Imran. In Surah Maryam, the same story, but in different ways. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا. This is the narration of your Lord's mercy to his servant Zakaria. What did he do? إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا. When he called his Lord in a low voice. So the scholars, they said when Zakaria was making this dua, he was not making this dua in front of everyone. This dua was what we call in Arabic munajat. Just between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With a very low voice. What did he say in his dua? Here's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. قال Zakaria. He said, قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا. He said, my Lord, I am in a state that bones in my body have turned feeble and the hand has flared up gray with old age, and I never remained, my Lord, unanswered in my prayer to you. Look at this introduction. Saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I became very old. And the gray hair already, took all over my head. And I have never had an unanswered dua with you. Which means, Ya Allah, you have always answered my dua. You have always answered my dua. This is number one. The second reason, these are all introductions before asking for the son. وَإِنِّي خِفْتُ الْمَوَالِيَ مِنْ وَرَائِي وَكَانَتِ امْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا فَهَبْ لِي مِنْ لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. I fear my kinsmen, which means my family members, my people, after me, and my wife is barren. So bless me with an heir from your own side. Which means bless me with a son from your own side. Zakaria was afraid that his people will go astray before him. Will go right and left and will not keep the commitment that Zakaria had been, preaching them all the time. So that's why he wanted a son to continue that legacy. To do what? يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ وَاجْعَلْهُ رَبِّ رَضِيًّا. Who inherits me and inherits the house of Yaqub and make him, my Lord, a favorite one. Which means, be pleased with him. Radiyya, which means, be pleased with him, Ya Allah. Immediately came the answer from Allah. يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا. Allah said, O Zakaria, we give you a good news of a boy whose name is Yahya. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who named him, but this is not the only thing about him. Then he said, we did not create anyone before him of the same name. In the history of humanity, there was no human being by the name of Yahya before Yahya ibn Zakaria. No one with the same name of Yahya, the son of Zakaria. Again, the reaction of Zakaria. قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرة وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا. He said, my Lord, how shall there be a boy for me while my wife is barren and I have reached an extreme of old age, 99 years old. The same reaction that we have seen in Surah Al-Imran. Again, this reaction not to question the ability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to express his excitement. He was so excited to the point that he started questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا. Allah said, so it is your Lord said, it is easy for me. I did create you before when you were nothing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making the comparison. That it's easy for me to create him. قال رب اجعل لي آية. He said, my Lord, make for me a sign. قال آيتك أن لا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا. He said, your sign is that you will not be able to speak to your people for 3 consecutive nights, even though you will be sound in health. You will be healthy. There will be nothing wrong with you, but this is your sign, is that you won't be able to communicate with your people. فخرج على قومه. At that point, Zakaria went out to his people. من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا. Then he came out to his people from the place of prayer, the place of worship, and directed them by gestures to proclaim the purity of Allah at morning and evening. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to talk to Yahya directly. He said, يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا. When the child was born, Allah said to him, Yahya, when he was born, O Yahya, hold on the book firmly, and we gave him wisdom while he was still a child. وحنانا من لدنا وزكاة وكان تقيا. And blessed him with love from our own and purity, and he was God-fearing. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَيْهِ. And he was good to his parents, and he was not an oppressive, disobedient. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ وُلِدَ وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. Peace be upon him the day he was born, the day he dies, and the day he will be raised alive. Scholars talked about that time of Yahya, even though we're going to talk in more detail. Yahya was given the prophethood and the wisdom since his very early age of childhood. To the point that scholars talked about him when his peers wanted him to go with them and play outside. He used to tell them, I was not created to play. This Yahya, as a young child, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old. His peers inviting him to join them, to go and play like everyone else. And he was like, I was not created to play. I was created for something else. He never joined his peers. He had the wisdom in speech since a child. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him pure, a loved one, dutiful to his parents, doing nothing like his peers at all. This is the dua of Zakaria when he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a boy who will be unlike any other boy in the society at that time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him for a specific task. Himself and his father, just to prepare the ground for Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. So Yahya was born, and his mother was Ashya', her name Ashya' bint Imran. Ashya' bint Imran, the sister of Maryam bint Imran. Ashya' bint Imran, the sister, and her sister Maryam bint Imran. And Imran, as I have said at the beginning, was the highest authority in the society or the community of Banu Israel at that time. Imran. And he grew up in an atmosphere of faith, iman, and taqwa. And then later on in his life, he was subjected to a lot of suffering, a lot of fitan. He went through so much hardship and difficult times, as we are going to see, inshallah. So, this is about Zakaria, alayhi salatu wasalam. And Zakaria, according to the majority of the scholars, he died after he had been tortured. He died after he had been tortured. And the way he died, according to most of the scholars, is that they tortured him until they split his head into two pieces. Bil minshar. So this is how Zakaria alayhi salam died. We know that Yahya was slaughtered and his head was offered to Herod. And this is the price those prophets paid, just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to be prophets and to say the word of truth to the people at that time. So we will stop here, inshallah, and next week, inshallah, we will continue with Prophet Yahya alayhi salatu wassalam. Till then, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept everything good we are doing and help us to follow the footsteps and the example, the role model of these prophets and messengers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give them the greatest ever reward for their sacrifice, for whatever they have done in order to keep this iman and to keep the people always on the straight path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور